Today I'm showing you all of my 5-star reads so you can have some great recommendations. Obviously, I recommend all of these books because I gave them the highest possible rating that I give out. I have 5 different categories that I put all the books into. The first category, starting off with a bang, is going to be romance. I actually only have 2 books in this category. I'm fairly new to reading romance. Why does it sound weird when I say that? I just started getting into it kind of this year / end of last year. So I have read a few since then, but I've only given 2 5 stars. The first book is actually the first romance book that I ever picked up, which led me to want to continue reading romance novels, is Summer of Broken Rules. I love this book. Like every time I think about it, I want to smile and like makes me happy. This book just bleeds like the essence of summer is what I feel like this book gives. When I read it, I was living in Canada in the absolute dead of winter, which if you know, you know, they have got horrible winters, and it still successfully gave me the feeling of summer during the harsh winter. And that is a hard feat in a Canadian winter. For me to feel summer in that, yeah, like props to that. You cannot give me more summer than that. In this book, our main character is Meredith, who just recently lost her sister to a tragic accident and has been kind of living in a haze dealing with that. She's ready to now join the world again and get back to living. And the perfect place to do that is at their annual family reunion, which is doubling as her cousin's wedding this year. Because of that, her cousin's fiance's family will also be there for the week of the reunion, which happens to include a smart-witted blonde boy who our main character may or may not find slightly attractive. One of my favorite parts of this book is the week-long game of Assassin that they play with all of the extended family and the cousin's fiance's family. It's just so fun and it feels just like summer and what I want from that. My family used to do annual family reunions growing up, and this book is what I always wish those family reunions were. So many pranks. Oh my gosh, my voice just cracked. So many pranks, so much fun, so many games. You get that light-hearted, close-knit family with a big dose of that summer feeling. I loved the romance. All of the relative side characters are also super fun to get to know. It's in Martha's Vineyard. There's a quaint little town. It's like the vibes of this book are 10 out of 10 for sure. You know that this book was good when I finished it and I immediately started planning my own family's reunion, which included, of course, a game of Assassin. Highly recommend, especially in the summertime or Canadian winter, I guess. The second romance book is Summer Romance. This is the only copy of all of these books that I actually own because I just don't really buy books, which I wish I could. It's not that I don't want to, they just cost money. So I don't do it that often, which is weird that when I went to the bookstore, I just randomly picked this book up off of a whim. Didn't even read the back of the book, didn't know anything about it, and just bought it, which I literally never do. I pretty much never buy books, and if I do buy them, I've done extensive research on it to make sure I'll like it so I'm not feeling like I'm wasting my money. But I'm so glad that I did because I would not have picked this book up if I read the back of this. It just doesn't seem like a book that would interest me, and it probably would turn me off just from reading it. I don't want to go into a ton of detail about this because I went in pretty much blind and obviously I loved it. So I kind of want to give other people that experience too. But a very brief synopsis of the book is you're following our main character, Allie, who is really struggling just with life in general right now. She's in the middle of a divorce. She's still grieving the loss of her mom that passed away recently, but she has a little meet cute with a dog and a man in a park who may just give her the confidence boost that she needs to find herself again. But before you get disinterested in a character that's a 30-something-year-old divorcee mom, really, like, please trust me when I say the author does such an incredible job of making this character relatable to whatever part of life that you're in right now. It doesn't have to be this character's circumstance to see a part of yourself in it. I promise something about this book will just hit you in the soul. Like, I don't know, but like I feel it in here. That's all I can say. I really want to try reading this book at just different stages of my life as I get older, because I really think I'll get something new out of it at all those different spots, and I'll be able to relate this character's story and progression to that part of my life as well, and I'll learn something from Allie, from her. This just hits on like so many levels. Please read. please read. Okay, next category is sci-fi, which I always think in my head that I've read a lot of sci-fi because I really enjoy a lot of the books that I've read, but I don't think I really have. So if you have any recommendations or in this genre, please let me know. First book is Red Rising. This book is a masterpiece. This book will be a classic one day. Like, mark my words, it will be. I know people say that about books sometimes because maybe they're popular or they have really good context and the story is good, but this is like on so many levels above all of those books. It is so good. Like, it is a genius. Like, it is genius. The discussion on human nature in the book is genius, like actually genius. I personally cannot fathom how somebody's brain could come up with this and then further write a story about it that's understandable and digestible. Like, it blows my mind. Actually, this is definitely a book that you do have to have your brain turned on for to read. So don't go into it wanting like a fun fantasy world because you will be disappointed. It's a complicated story. It's a complicated world and system along with intense themes and messages throughout. I genuinely do not know how to give a synopsis of this book. If I just tell you what the basis of the story is, there's just so much more to the book than the story that I can't even try and describe what it actually is about. The best way that I can summarize it is just an expose on the human nature on a small scale within an individual and in society as a whole, but take that and wrap it into just a good, interesting story. I feel like the way I'm describing this makes it sound like a philosophy book or something. It definitely is not. This is a sci-fi fantasy book. The whole thing is just a cohesive story, just a regular book. So if you're not really interested in like the philosophical side of it, you totally can ignore it and just read it for the great story that it is. Yeah, I have zero critiques about this book at all. I love to discuss books, so even books that I love, I can still kind of pick apart like the story or the writing or pieces that maybe aren't the best, and I enjoy doing that. But this book, literally I do not have one note because the author is so obviously way more intelligent than me that everything is just like flawless in my opinion. Yeah, I don't know. Read this book. It's my top 5 of all-time books. Next category has the most books of all the genres because it is my favorite genre, fantasy. My most recent 5-star read in fantasy was Tress of the Emerald Sea. I loved this book so much. Obviously, I love all these books because they're my 5-star reads. I am slowly but surely becoming a Brandon Sanderson stan. I have only read a few books that he's written, but all of the ones that I've read I've absolutely loved, and Tress of the Emerald Sea was actually the first one that I read by him. This book is about Tress, who lives on an island in the middle of nowhere and really is just content to live a simple life, doesn't have big dreams or desires. But when her best friend goes missing and she realizes nobody's going to find him or save him except her, she sets out on an adventure to go find him and gets a lot more than she bargained for. This book definitely has high stakes, but I'm sorry, if there's growling, it's her. Come here. There you go. So this book does have high stakes, but it really reads a lot more like a cozy fantasy. It still has really good plot and the plot moves the story forward, but it just feels slower paced than your regular fantasy. I usually don't like cozy fantasies. I really need a good plot to like keep me invested. I don't super enjoy character driven books as much, but I would say this one's kind of in the middle between like your regular fantasy and a cozy. It's somewhere in that scale, just to try and set your expectations for what this book will be. I know Brandon Sanderson is like known for his plot and his high stakes fantasy, so just to try and set the expectations so you have a good time reading it, that's all. I don't know what it is about books where the main character kind of finds herself and comes into herself through some kind of journey or adventure, but I just love those stories, like a lot. I feel them deep in here. Tress of the Emerald Sea and Summer Romance are two very good books that have that element as a main part of the story. Next is the Dance of Thieves duology. A lot of times with series, a series on a whole will be 5-star, but not every single book in that series is 5 stars. In this case, both books are 5 stars for me. I loved both of them. Also, can we talk about duologies? I know trilogies are kind of trendy and publishers are pushing writers for them, but there is something about a duology where it's only 2 books. I don't know what it is, but I just love that. Anyways, so Dance of Thieves is the first book and Vow of Thieves is the second book. I will only be talking about the first one for obvious reasons. I'm genuinely not sure how to pronounce the main character's name in this book. Kazi, something like that. But she is sent by her queen to investigate a neighboring kingdom who has allegedly been hostile towards her own kingdom's settlements in the area. So she's sent out to this kingdom, and as she gets there, she notices that there's something brewing under the surface, and she intends to find out what is going on. And things get even more complicated when she meets the ruler of this kingdom and becomes close with him and his family, but is also the person who she is supposed to be taking down. I love the romance in this book. They have great banter and that fiery spark in a romance of rivalry almost, but then they also show like the sweet side of love, and I really liked the two together. It is kind of a slowish burn, but you do get a lot of moments between them. That leading up to it is just so good. This book is like exactly what I want for a fantasy. If in my head I'm feeling like a fantasy, it is this book that is the outline of what I want. You have adventure, uncovering secret plots, strong characters, deception, romance, all in like this fantastical, magical land. Like, what more could you want from a book, really? Next is Once Upon a Broken Heart by Stephanie Garber. This book, I was really hesitant to put on this list. This is a very popular series. I'm sure you've heard about it, but I just have conflicting feelings on the series as a whole. I read this book in one day, pretty much one sitting, absolutely loved it, could not put it down. It made me feel giddy. I love the characters in this book. If you know, you know. It was just an easy 5 stars for me. It gave me that 5-star feelings 100%. But the rest of the series, I really didn't like. It was just a huge disappointment for me. I really felt like it was rushed to get published because it was so popular. The storyline absolutely just drops off after the first book, which is so sad because I loved the first book so much that I just could not wait to continue the series. So while Once Upon a Broken Heart is 5 stars for me, the rest of the series is not. But a lot of other people who recommend this series, they say that the second book is their favorite, so maybe you'll like the whole series. I don't know. That was just my opinion and my feelings of it when I read it. If you're watching this video, I'm absolutely positive that you have heard about this series somewhere, so I won't go into too much detail. This book is about Evangeline, who makes a deal with the fate in order to stop the man that she loves from getting married to someone else. But what do we know about making deals with immortal, powerful beings? They always go absolutely horribly wrong, and she kind of finds herself tied to this fate that she made a deal with and ends up being used in his own schemes. This book is like the definition of whimsical fairy tale. I felt like I was in a fairy tale when I read this book. The vibes and the atmosphere are immaculate. I honestly am still searching for a book that gave me the feeling that this book gave me when I read it for the first time. It is unmatched. This book is also very much a romantasy, which I love. I love romantasies, but just trying to set a realistic expectation for you. If you do decide to read the series, I would highly recommend that you read her first series first, which is the Caraval, I don't know how to say it. So much more of the plot and the reasoning behind the actions of a lot of the characters will make sense if you read the other one first. A major plot point in Once Upon a Broken Heart is based off of something that happened in the first book, and many of the characters that you're introduced to and are main characters in Once Upon a Broken Heart are from the first series, and the main male character is from that first series. I've heard a lot of people saying that the reading order doesn't really matter, that you can read them however you want, but I would just disagree from someone who has read both. I think Once Upon a Broken Heart and the whole trilogy will just hit so much harder if you have the backstory from Caraval series, and it will just make so much more sense. A lot of the magic system is kind of brushed over Once Upon a Broken Heart series because they're expecting you to have read the series where it's all explained out. The last book in the fantasy series is a whole series actually, and that is Throne of Glass, another series that I am absolutely sure you have heard of if you are watching anything on BookTube. If you've ever wondered if this series lives up to the hype that it gets, absolutely everywhere online? The answer is yes. Yes, it does. There are 8 books in this series, 7 books and 1 full book of, I think, 4 or 5 novellas. Not every book in this series is a 5-star, but it is a 5-star series as a whole. I gave the second and the third book 5 stars, and literally every single other book is a 4. I know this video is just my 5-star ratings, but I can't really recommend the second and the third book in his series. You kind of have to read the whole thing. I'm not even going to tell you what this book is about because you already know. You already know if you are watching this video. And if you're watching this video, you already know that you should be reading this. I am just going to put a little bit of a disclaimer though. As someone who likes to know the spice level of books going into them, this series is listed as a YA series on Goodreads. I have to disagree with that. I think the first 3 books and the book of novellas is YA, but the rest of the series are not because they have spice in them. If that's something that you also care about, there are a ton of resources and websites that list the pages or the chapters of where the spice is at. So you can know ahead of time if you want to skip it or decide if this series is for you or not by maybe just doing a little bit of research. I just personally didn't know that this series got more mature as it went on. So I just felt kind of blindsided, and I wish that I had known that so I could know what to expect or know I had to skip some parts. So in case anyone else is in that same boat, now you know. Okay, next category is classics. I have actually read a lot of classics, probably because I was homeschooled for part of elementary and middle school, so my mom just had us read a lot. But I have 2 that are in the 5-star category. The first one is Little Women. This book is like one of my all-time favorites. I love this book so much. I think I've read it twice, and both times I've loved it. The second time I read it, I was like, okay, did I just read this when I was younger and didn't actually know how to rate books and it's not that good? But then I read it when I was older and I loved it just as much, gave it 5 stars again. Like, I couldn't give it anything else. Little Women is mostly a character-driven book about 4 sisters who are finding their way in life, making friends, falling in love, making choices, and sisterly relationships. Each sister in the book is very different and each has her unique quality or unique personality that makes her her. And one of my favorite parts is as you read this book, you kind of recognize a part of yourself in each of the different sisters. I have 3 sisters, so there's 4 of us, and I just really love the added element that that gives me. Not only recognizing myself in each of the characters, but also seeing my sisters in each of the characters. And it's really fun to try and decide which sister in my own life is most like a sister in the book and making comparisons there. Like I said before, I really am not into character-driven books. I need a plot to like keep me invested and keep me going. But this book is just so captivating. You just fall in love with this little family and all their interactions and all their day-to-day activities and the little mini adventures they go on. It just pulls you right into the story, and it makes like everyday life feel so captivating and exciting. This is also like the only book I've ever cried in. I'm not a big crier, so that should tell you a lot. If you're looking to get into classics, I think this is a great start. It's simple, easy to read, and very, very lovable characters. Last classic is The Hobbit. If you are looking for an adventure in a book, this is it. This is about like a humanoid creature called a hobbit who gets enlisted to help a group of dwarves find and take a long lost treasure. The journey turns out to be much more dangerous than this hobbit was led to believe, including encounters with a dragon. So this book takes you through the start and the finish of that journey. This book I can only describe as pure adventure. That's what this book is about. That is the essence of this book. If you've ever wished you could be in a magical land, go on a quest, do something that's bigger than life, this book is a story about that. One of my favorite parts of this book, and one of the reasons why I think it is a classic, is you're following someone who is so severely underqualified to be on a quest. Okay, my camera died, so he has no skills, no experience, nothing that qualifies him to be on this adventure, this quest. Because people who go on these types of things are supposed to be heroes, fighters, like strong people, like the people that he's on this adventure with, but not him. Which is exactly what us as readers, when reading all these different books, think. Like, I desperately really want to go on an adventure and a quest and be like the characters in these books that I'm reading all the time, but I wasn't trained to be an assassin by the age of 4 months old, and I don't have magic that I just happen to know how to use exactly when I need to use it. Like, I just read. I'm an ordinary person. And that's what you get in this book with the main character. The question is posed, what if the main character of a story was below average and selected for an adventure? Basically, what if someone like me went on a story like in these books that I read all the time? I feel like this concept has been tried in a lot of different books and in a lot of different ways, but I feel like the main character usually ends up with some hidden power, some secret skill that they had this whole time but they just didn't know was there, and it kind of defeats the purpose of asking that question in the first place. So though the Hobbit surprises himself with what he can do and what he can accomplish, he is just himself. He is just a regular person. Anyways, you need to read the book. One of the greatest books of all times for a reason. And if you've seen the movies of The Hobbit, the movies do not follow the plot of the book, so don't go into it expecting the story that you saw on the TV match the one in the book, because it just really doesn't. The last category is nostalgia. So with the books in this category, I can't say from an objective standpoint that they are 5 stars because I read them when I was much younger and therefore have some kind of feeling mixed with the book. They usually bring back good memories and good feelings that just do influence my rating on it. The first book is Howl's Moving Castle. I love this book so much. If you can't tell, again, like I can't stop smiling just thinking about it. I've read this book at least 3 times, maybe more. I don't even know, I can't remember. This book also has a movie about it, and I really recommend this movie. I think it's a great movie, really well done. It's one of the few movies about books that I feel does the book justice. So if you don't actually feel like reading the book, you could watch the movie and you will have a great time. So our main character is Sophie, and she is destined to fail miserably at life. She's always had bad luck, and that doesn't change when she has a run-in with a wicked witch who puts a curse on her that turns her into an old lady. To undo this curse, she must seek out the wizard Howl, who lives in a moving castle. The wizard Howl turns out to be not what she expected, turns out to be a young, handsome man, but this curse that she's trying to undo turns out to be more tricky to get rid of than she originally thought. This is like such a fun book. That is the way to describe it. It's so fun. I love Sophie. I love how she grows as a person in this book. I love the subplot of romance. I feel like this is the perfect book to read in the fall because it feels cozy, even though I wouldn't label this as like a cozy fantasy. It does read a little bit slower, but I wouldn't go as far as to say it's anywhere near a cozy fantasy. I just love this book. Talking about it makes me want to pick it up again. Next book was my favorite book all throughout growing up, which is Princess Academy. I again have read this book many times. I don't even know how many times. This story is about a girl who lives in a very small, remote village in the middle of the mountains, which is pretty isolated from the rest of the world. Their village lives on mining this stone that is only found in the deep mountains where they live. And because it's so isolated and so small, everyone in the village is pretty uneducated and they just live simple lives, and everybody works in these mines to get this stone. But one day a royal announcement comes from the priest, the head priest of that kingdom, that the future princess is going to be found in that small village where our main character lives. And in 1 year, the prince is going to come pick a girl to be his bride-to-be from the village. So in preparation for that, they found like an academy where all girls of marrying age, which is like teenager age in the book, in the time setting that this is, are sent to this academy to learn how to be a princess. So we follow our main character as she navigates friendships at this school, figuring out learning for the first time, reading for the first time, and kind of grappling with the reality of possibly becoming a princess of an entire kingdom in the future. This book is YA, definitely, but it's such a sweet, quick book. I love the school setting of the book, and all the relationships with the different girls at the school is also really fun. I feel like if you're a girl who's been in any kind of school setting, you will just relate to that aspect of the book so hard. And there's also like a twist at the end of the book I don't even know if it's a twist, but it just doesn't end the way that you're expect it to end, which I really love. Last is the Harry Potter series. I know this book could easily go just in the fantasy section and not in the nostalgic section because it's been proven that this is just a fantastic book series, but I do have that nostalgic attachment to the book because I read it when I was so young. So I just figured it was like more fair to put it in this category. This book obviously needs absolutely no introduction at all. You know what it's about. If there's one series you should read from watching this video, this is that series. I Wish I Was a Witch. I wish Hogwarts was real. I feel actual pain that this world does not exist and I am not a part of it. And that is all the books on my 5-star reads recommendations. This is obviously not all of my 5 stars ever, but these are the ones that I just am recommending. If you want a part 2 to this, let me know if that's interesting or not, and I'll see you next time. Bye!